The early morning sun was slowly rising over the quiet village, spreading a soft golden light across the wet fields and the small water pump area near the edge of the village. The air was fresh, filled with the smell of soil and water, and the sound of birds echoed in the distance. Kapil stood near the tubewell platform, shaking off the cold water from his hands. He had just finished washing his face, and his clothes were slightly damp from the splashes. He looked around with a calm but confident expression, as if he was waiting for something or someone. A few steps away, Ramesh Chachu was standing with his arms crossed. He was a strong man, well known in the village for his wrestling skills and physical strength. People often said he had never lost a match in the local akhara. His presence alone was enough to make younger boys stay careful around him. But today, instead of seriousness, there was a strange mix of challenge and curiosity in his eyes. Kapil turned toward him with a slight smile. "So you really think I'll step back today?" he asked casually, as if this was just another normal conversation. Ramesh Chachu raised one eyebrow. "It's not about thinking, boy. It's about knowing your limits. This place is slippery, and you're not experienced enough for this kind of challenge." Kapil chuckled softly. "Experience? Sometimes experience makes people slow. I think confidence matters more." That simple line made Chachu smirk. He pushed himself away from the tree he was leaning on and took a few steps forward, stopping at a safe distance from Kapil. The ground between them was slightly wet, uneven, and dangerous for any sudden movement. "Confidence is good," Chachu said, "but overconfidence gets people hurt." Kapil tilted his head. "Then maybe you should show me what real confidence looks like." For a moment there was silence. The wind moved gently through the fields, and the sound of the running water from the tubewell filled the gap between them. It felt like the whole village had paused just to watch this unusual challenge forming between the experienced wrestler and the young, fearless challenger. Chachu slowly rolled his shoulders, loosening his arms. "You really want to do this?" Kapil nodded without hesitation. "I didn't come here to step back." A faint smile appeared on Chachu's face, not of anger, but of acceptance. He respected bravery, even in someone younger and less experienced. "All right then," he said calmly. "Let's see what you've got. But remember, I won't go easy on you." Kapil stepped forward onto the wet platform, carefully placing his feet so he wouldn't slip. He raised his hands slightly, taking a light stance, not fully serious but ready enough. Chachu also moved forward, his steps steady and controlled, like someone who had done this 100 times before. The distance between them was now just a few feet. Both could feel the tension building, not of hatred but of competition. It was the kind of challenge where both wanted to prove themselves, not defeat the other unfairly. Chachu broke the silence first. "Last chance to step back." Kapil shook his head. "No." That one word was enough. In a sudden moment, Chachu moved forward, trying to grab Kapil's shoulder in a controlled wrestling hold. But Kapil quickly stepped aside, using the slippery ground to his advantage. He almost lost balance but recovered quickly, showing surprising agility. Chachu turned sharply, impressed. "Not bad," he muttered. Kapil smiled slightly. "Told you." The two circled each other slowly now, each studying the other's movement. Chachu was patient, waiting for the right moment. Kapil was quick, trying to find an opening. The atmosphere shifted from casual challenge to focused competition. Birds flew across the sky above them as the village slowly came alive in the background. But near the tubewell, time felt slower. Every step, every breath, every glance mattered. Chachu finally decided to move again, this time more carefully. Kapil prepared himself, lowering his stance slightly, ready to react. The challenge between them was no longer just about strength. It was about timing, control, and understanding each other's moves. And just as Chachu stepped in for another grip, Kapil shifted his weight, ready to respond in his own way. The moment Kapil shifted his weight and prepared for Chachu's next move, the entire atmosphere around them seemed to tighten even further, as if even the wind had slowed down to observe what would happen next. The wet ground beneath their feet reflected the faint morning light, making every step uncertain and every movement slightly risky. Chachu, experienced and composed, didn't rush. He understood that in wrestling, patience often mattered more than power. Kapil, on the other hand, was young, energetic, and unpredictable. Someone who relied more on instinct than long experience. Chachu took a slow step forward, testing Kapil's reaction. His eyes were sharp, focused on Kapil's shoulders and feet, analyzing how he shifted his balance. Kapil responded immediately by circling to his right, keeping just enough distance to avoid a direct grab. The tension between them wasn't aggressive in a harmful sense. It was the kind of competitive energy that builds between two strong opponents who both refuse to give up easily. Good footwork, Chachu said calmly, almost appreciating Kapil's movement. Kapil didn't respond with words. Instead, he gave a slight nod and adjusted his stance again, lowering his center of gravity. He had noticed something important. Chachu wasn't attacking randomly. Every movement had purpose, every step was calculated. That meant Kapil couldn't afford to make careless mistakes. Chachu suddenly made a small feint, pretending to move in from the left. Kapil reacted instantly, shifting his weight in the opposite direction. But Chachu didn't fully commit to the move. Instead, he stopped midway, observing Kapil's reaction. A faint smile appeared on his face. "You react fast," Chachu said. "But reaction alone doesn't win matches." Kapil finally spoke. "And waiting too long doesn't either." That reply made Chachu exhale softly, almost amused. He appreciated confidence, even if it came from someone younger and less experienced. The space between them remained steady, neither closing nor increasing, like a paused moment in time. The only sound was the gentle flow of water from the tube well and the occasional rustle of leaves in the background. Chachu now changed his approach. Instead of testing from a distance, he slowly started to close the gap. His steps were firm but careful, making sure not to slip on the wet surface. Kapil immediately adjusted, stepping backward slightly, maintaining control of his distance. He knew that if Chachu got too close, his experience in grappling could become a serious advantage. The gap between them reduced to just a few feet. Kapil's breathing became more focused. He could feel the pressure building, not fear, but concentration. Chachu raised his hands slightly, preparing for a controlled grip attempt. Kapil mirrored the movement, ready to counter. Suddenly, Chachu made his move. He stepped in quickly, aiming for Kapil's upper body to secure a hold. It was fast, precise, and powerful, a classic wrestling entry that he had used countless times before. But Kapil anticipated it. At the last moment, he twisted his body sideways and stepped out of the direct line of attack. However, the slippery ground played its own role. Kapil's foot slid slightly, breaking his perfect balance for a split second. Chachu noticed it immediately and adjusted his movement to capitalize on the opening. He turned sharply, trying to secure a partial grip. Kapil felt the pressure and reacted instinctively. Instead of resisting directly, he used the momentum of Chachu's movement to redirect himself, pulling away just enough to avoid being fully controlled. It was not perfect, but it was smart. Chachu's grip missed its full hold, and both of them ended up resetting their positions almost instantly. Chachu stepped back slightly, nodding in approval. "Not bad," he said again, this time with more seriousness. "You learn quickly." Kapil wiped a bit of water from his face and smiled faintly. "I don't like repeating mistakes." The challenge between them was now evolving. It was no longer just about strength or speed, it had become a mental game. Each one was trying to read the other's intention before the move even happened. The wet platform, once just a background setting, now played a crucial role in their movements. Every step had to be measured, every shift in weight carefully controlled. Chachu began to circle again, this time slower, more deliberately. Kapil followed his movement, matching his pace. They moved like two experienced fighters who had started understanding each other's rhythm. The earlier unpredictability was now replaced by structured caution. "You're still holding back," Chachu said after a moment. Kapil raised an eyebrow. "So are you." Chachu didn't deny it. Instead, he gave a slight smile. "I'm just making sure you don't get hurt." Kapil laughed softly. Or maybe you're making sure you don't lose control. That statement made Chachu pause briefly. There was truth in it, and both of them knew it. In competitive matches, control was everything. Losing control meant losing the match. The wind picked up slightly, rustling the nearby crops. A few drops of water fell from the overhead pipe, creating small ripples on the wet surface. Both competitors adjusted their stance again almost simultaneously, like mirror reflections of each other. Chachu finally decided to increase the intensity. He stepped in with more commitment this time, attempting a stronger grappling move. Kapil responded immediately, blocking the initial contact and shifting sideways. Their arms briefly made contact, but neither gained full control. The struggle lasted only a few seconds before both broke apart again. They reset once more, breathing slightly heavier now, the intensity gradually rising. Kapil's eyes were sharper, more focused. Chachu's expression remained calm, but there was now a visible seriousness in his posture. "This is getting interesting," Chachu said quietly. Kapil nodded. "Just getting started." For a brief moment, neither moved. It felt like the calm before another wave of action. The ground beneath them remained wet, unpredictable and challenging, just like the competition between them. The tension between Kapil and Chachu had now fully transformed into a serious test of skill and control. After several initial exchanges, both of them had begun to understand each other's rhythm, and that made the next phase of their challenge even more intense. The wet ground beneath them was still slippery, but by now, both had adapted to it, carefully adjusting their footwork with every movement. Neither wanted to give the other an easy opportunity. Chachu took a slow breath and straightened his posture. His eyes remained locked on Kapil, but now there was a deeper level of focus in his expression. He was no longer just testing the boy in front of him, he was analyzing him. Kapil, in response, slightly lowered his stance again, keeping his center of gravity stable. His earlier excitement had now turned into disciplined attention. "You're not as easy as I thought," Chachu said calmly. Kapil didn't take his eyes off him. "And you're not as slow as I expected either." That small exchange brought a brief silence between them. It wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence that happens right before a serious move is made. Both knew that the next exchange could change the entire direction of the match. Chachu suddenly shifted his weight forward, but instead of a full attack, it was another feint. Kapil didn't fall for it this time. He stayed grounded, watching carefully without reacting too quickly. A faint smile appeared on Chachu's face as he noticed this improvement. "Good," Chachu said. "You're learning." Kapil exhaled slowly. "I'm paying attention." The distance between them reduced slightly again as Chachu began circling to his left. Kapil mirrored him, maintaining equal spacing. The movement looked almost choreographed now. Two skilled individuals reading each other's intentions without needing words. Suddenly, Chachu changed pace. He stepped in quickly, aiming for a controlled hold around Kapil's upper body. This time, the entry was sharper and more direct than before. Kapil reacted instantly, bringing his arms up to block and redirect the grip. For a brief moment, their arms locked, strength against strength, each trying to gain advantage. The pressure lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to test both of them. Kapil felt Chachu's experience in the way he adjusted his grip mid-contact, trying to break Kapil's balance. At the same time, Chachu noticed Kapil's agility in how quickly he shifted his footing to avoid being fully controlled. They broke apart again, both stepping back almost simultaneously. Chachu nodded slightly. "Better." Kapil gave a small smile. "You too." Their breathing was now slightly heavier, not from exhaustion but from continuous focus. The challenge was becoming more physical but also more mental. Every move required anticipation. Every second mattered. The wind moved gently through the nearby fields again, and the sound of water continued to flow in the background. Despite the simplicity of the surroundings, the moment between them felt significant, like a turning point in their competition. Chachu rolled his shoulders again, loosening his arms. "Let's make this a bit more serious," he said. Kapil adjusted his stance. Finally, both of them stepped forward again, this time with more intent. The distance closed faster than before, and the next exchange was about to begin. The moment both Kapil and Chachu stepped forward again, the atmosphere around the tube well area changed noticeably. What had started as a casual challenge had now turned into a serious test of endurance, skill, and mental control. The wet ground still made every step unpredictable, forcing both of them to stay alert at all times. Neither could afford even a small mistake, because one slip could completely shift the balance of the match. Chachu was the first to make a calculated move. Instead of rushing in, he began to circle Kapil slowly, looking for an opening. His footwork was steady and experienced, showing years of practice in wrestling. Kapil mirrored him, staying alert and maintaining distance. He had already learned that Chachu rarely attacked without preparation. "You're improving," Chachu said calmly while moving. Kapil replied without breaking focus, "I'm just watching carefully." Chachu gave a slight nod but didn't stop moving. His eyes kept scanning Kapil's stance, trying to find any small weakness, maybe a slight imbalance or a delayed reaction. But Kapil was now more careful than before. He adjusted his feet constantly, never allowing his weight to settle in one place for too long. The tension increased as Chachu suddenly changed direction and stepped in slightly faster than before. Kapil reacted immediately, shifting backward while raising his guard. Chachu didn't fully commit, but the sudden speed was enough to test Kapil's reflexes. It was another feint, but this time more aggressive. Kapil narrowed his eyes. "Trying to confuse me?" Chachu smiled faintly. "Trying to see if you stay sharp." Kapil didn't respond further. Instead, he changed his own rhythm. He began moving in small, quick steps, breaking Chachu's pattern of observation. It was a smart adjustment. If Chachu wanted to study him, Kapil would make it harder by not staying predictable. Chachu noticed the change immediately. "Good strategy," he said. Kapil replied, "You taught me that indirectly." That comment made Chachu slightly amused, but he stayed focused. The distance between them reduced again as both began to slowly close in. The air felt heavier with anticipation. Even though no one had made a full attack yet, every movement suggested that something was about to happen. Suddenly, Chachu stepped forward with more intent. This time it wasn't a feint. It was a proper attempt to secure control. His hand reached toward Kapil's upper body, aiming for a classic grappling hold. Kapil reacted instantly, blocking the initial contact with his forearm and stepping sideways to avoid direct pressure. But Chachu was experienced. He immediately adjusted his angle, turning his body to maintain pressure. For a brief moment, their arms and shoulders made firm contact. It became a strength-based struggle, both trying to control the other's position without losing balance on the slippery surface. Kapil felt the pressure increasing. Chachu's grip was strong and stable, and he used his body weight effectively. But Kapil didn't panic. Instead, he shifted his stance slightly and used the wet ground to his advantage, subtly sliding his foot to create a better angle for escape. Chachu noticed the movement. "Smart," he muttered. With a quick adjustment, Kapil managed to break the hold partially and step back. Both of them separated again, breathing slightly heavier now. The intensity was clearly rising with each exchange. Chachu straightened up. "You don't give up easily," Kapil replied. "Neither do you." A brief silence followed. Both competitors were now fully focused. The earlier casual tone was gone. What remained was pure competition, respectful, but intense. The wind moved again across the field, and the sound of water flowing from the tube well continued in the background. The world around them felt distant now, as if only the two of them existed in that moment. Chachu slowly raised his hand again. "One more serious round," he said. Kapil nodded. "I'm ready." They both stepped forward once again, their movements slower but more deliberate than before, preparing for the next decisive exchange. The moment Kapil and Chachu stepped in again, the intensity between them reached a new level. Both of them were now fully engaged, not just physically but mentally, reading each other's movements with sharp focus. The earlier hesitation had completely disappeared. Every step they took on the wet ground was careful, deliberate, and controlled. The tube well area, once quiet and ordinary, now felt like a small arena where only skill and timing mattered. Chachu slowly circled again, but this time his movement was tighter and more controlled. He was reducing unnecessary motion, conserving energy while watching Kapil's reaction closely. Kapil, on the other hand, had also matured in his approach during the match. He was no longer reacting emotionally. Instead, he was calculating distance, balance, and timing. "You've stopped making mistakes," Chachu said quietly. Kapil replied, "I've stopped rushing." Chachu nodded slightly, acknowledging the change. That was exactly what he had been waiting to see. Adaptation. In any serious physical challenge, the ability to learn during the process was more important than raw strength. And now Kapil was showing that improvement. Chachu suddenly stepped forward with a sharper motion than before. This time, it wasn't a feint or a test. It was a direct attempt to break Kapil's balance. His hand moved toward Kapil's shoulder while his foot stepped inside to close distance. The movement was quick and precise. Kapil reacted instantly, shifting his body to the side and blocking the initial contact. The wet ground made it slightly difficult to maintain perfect footing, but he adjusted quickly. For a brief moment, their arms connected again, and a controlled struggle began. Chachu applied steady pressure, trying to guide Kapil into a position where he could secure a stronger hold. Kapil resisted, using footwork instead of force, trying to break the angle of control. The struggle lasted only a few seconds, but in that short time, both tested each other's strength and balance. Neither of them fully succeeded, and they broke apart again. Chachu stepped back first, breathing slightly deeper now. "Better defense," he said. Kapil nodded. "Better attack." A faint smile appeared on Chachu's face. The match was becoming more interesting with every exchange. It was no longer about dominance. It was about skill refinement in real time. The wind moved gently across the field again, and a few droplets of water from the tube well fell onto the already wet ground. Both of them adjusted their stance simultaneously, as if synchronized by instinct. Chachu rolled his shoulders once more. "Let's increase the pace." Kapil didn't hesitate. "Fine." This time, both moved toward each other at the same moment. The distance closed faster than before, and the next exchange began almost immediately. Chachu tried a quick grip toward Kapil's upper body, but Kapil slipped slightly to the side and countered with a controlled push to break the hold. Chachu rotated his stance and regained balance instantly, preventing any disadvantage. For a few seconds, they remained in close range, exchanging control attempts without fully committing to a single hold. It was a fast, technical phase of the match where timing mattered more than strength. Each second brought a new adjustment, a new counter, and a new reset. Kapil noticed something important during this exchange. Chachu was starting to respect his unpredictability. Earlier, he had been guiding the match with experience, but now he was reacting more carefully. That realization gave Kapil confidence, but he stayed disciplined. Chachu, on the other hand, was observing Kapil's adaptability. "You're learning too fast," he said. Kapil replied calmly, "I'm just matching your speed." Chachu gave a slight laugh. "That's not easy." Another brief pause followed as they separated slightly again. The intensity remained high, but both were now measuring each other more carefully. No unnecessary movement, no wasted energy, only precision. Chachu took a deeper breath. "Next move decides the direction," he said. Kapil nodded. "Then let's see it." Both stepped forward again, preparing for what felt like the most important exchange yet. The tension between Kapil and Chachu had now reached its peak. Both stood facing each other in the damp, uneven ground near the tube well, their breathing slightly heavier than before, yet their focus sharper than ever. The earlier exchanges had stripped away all hesitation, leaving only raw concentration and strategy. The surrounding village seemed distant now, as if the world had narrowed down to just this small patch of ground and the two competitors within it. Chachu slowly adjusted his stance, rolling his shoulders once and flexing his fingers. His eyes were calm but deeply observant. He was no longer testing Kapil lightly. Now he was preparing for a decisive move. Kapil noticed the change immediately. His posture also tightened, his feet planted more firmly, ready to react to anything. "You've lasted longer than I expected," Chachu said quietly. Kapil replied without breaking eye contact. "And you've held back more than I expected." Chachu gave a faint smile. "Maybe I was waiting for this moment." Kapil didn't respond. Instead, he shifted his weight slightly, making himself harder to predict. The wet ground beneath them still added uncertainty to every step, but both had now adapted to it almost completely. Chachu suddenly moved. This time, there was no delay, no feint, no hesitation. He stepped forward with clear intent, closing the distance quickly. His arm moved toward Kapil's upper body, aiming for a firm grip that could control posture and balance. It was a clean, experienced entry, the kind that usually ended exchanges quickly. But Kapil reacted instantly. He stepped to the side, narrowly avoiding the direct line of attack, and raised his arm to block the grip. For a moment, their arms collided again, and both tried to establish control. The contact was brief but intense, each pushing and adjusting in real time. Chachu attempted to rotate his body to secure a stronger position, using his experience to angle Kapil off balance. But Kapil shifted his feet carefully, preventing a full lock. The slippery ground made both of them adjust constantly, preventing any perfect execution from either side. They broke apart again almost instantly. Chachu stepped back half a step, exhaling slowly. "Good reflexes," he said. Kapil nodded slightly. "Good timing." The intensity was now clearly visible in both of them. Neither looked tired, but both were fully engaged, mentally calculating every move. This was no longer just a physical contest. It had become a battle of anticipation. A light breeze passed through the fields again, and the sound of flowing water continued in the background. The environment remained calm, but the energy between the two competitors was anything but calm. Chachu suddenly changed his approach. Instead of attacking directly, he began to circle again, but faster this time. His movement created pressure, forcing Kapil to adjust repeatedly. Kapil followed carefully, not allowing himself to be pulled into an awkward position. "You're trying to make me react," Kapil said. Chachu replied, "I'm trying to make you move first." That was the real strategy now. Whoever acted first could potentially create an opening but also risk a mistake. Both understood this, and neither wanted to commit blindly. Kapil slowed his movements slightly, refusing to be rushed. Chachu noticed this immediately and stopped circling, bringing the pace back to neutral. A moment of stillness followed. It was the kind of silence that often comes right before a decisive exchange. Both competitors stood at a balanced distance, their bodies ready, their minds fully alert. Even their breathing seemed controlled, measured. Chachu spoke softly, almost as if confirming something to himself. "One clean move will decide it." Kapil nodded. "Then make it clean." For a few seconds, nothing happened. The world felt still. Then, almost simultaneously, both stepped forward again. The final exchange of this phase was about to begin. The final exchange began the moment both Kapil and Chachu stepped forward at the same time. The air around them felt heavier than before, as if the entire focus of the moment had narrowed into a single decisive clash. Their eyes locked instantly, both reading the intention in the other's movement. Neither of them hesitated now. This was the point where everything they had built during the match would be tested. Chachu moved first with controlled speed, stepping in to close the distance and attempting to secure a strong upper body hold. His experience showed in the precision of his entry, balanced, firm, and calculated. Kapil reacted immediately, shifting his stance and blocking the initial contact, refusing to let Chachu fully lock his grip. For a brief moment, they were in close contact again. Arms collided, shoulders pressed, and both tried to control the other's balance. The wet ground made the struggle even more difficult, forcing both to constantly adjust their footing. Neither could get a perfect position. Kapil felt the pressure of Chachu's strength, but instead of resisting directly, he changed angle quickly, slipping slightly to the side. Chachu tried to follow the movement, but Kapil used the momentum to break the hold partially. The connection weakened. Chachu stepped back half a step, recalibrating instantly. Good, he said quietly, acknowledging the counter. Kapil didn't waste time. He adjusted his stance and replied, "Not over yet." Both of them circled once again, but this time the movement was slower. The intensity had reached its final stage. No unnecessary motion, no wasted energy. Every step, every breath, every shift in weight carried meaning. Chachu suddenly stopped circling. He looked at Kapil directly. "Last move," he said calmly. Kapil nodded. "Last move." There was a short pause. Even the wind seemed to settle for a moment. The sound of water from the tube well continued in the background, but everything else felt silent. Then Chachu stepped forward with full commitment. This time, the attack was decisive. He aimed for a strong grip, trying to bring the match to an end with control and experience. Kapil reacted instantly, but instead of moving backward, he chose a different approach. He shifted forward into the motion, meeting the attack head-on and redirecting the angle. For a moment, both struggled in close contact again. Strength met timing, experience met adaptability. The wet surface forced both to adjust constantly, making the outcome unpredictable. Neither had full control. Kapil then made a small but crucial adjustment. He used Chachu's forward momentum and shifted his position just enough to break the balance line. Chachu tried to stabilize, but the slippery ground worked against him for a fraction of a second. That fraction was enough. The pressure between them loosened, and both stepped back, separating naturally as the movement ended. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Both stood still, breathing slightly heavier, looking at each other with a mix of seriousness and mutual respect. Chachu finally broke the silence with a small nod. "You've improved more than I expected." Kapil gave a calm smile. "I had a good opponent." Chachu exhaled slowly, relaxing his stance. "That's enough for today." Kapil also relaxed, lowering his hands. The intensity that had filled the space between them slowly faded, replaced by quiet understanding. There was no winner announced, no celebration, no defeat, only respect between two strong individuals who had tested each other fully. As the morning continued and the village slowly came to life again, both of them walked away from the tubewell area in their own directions. The challenge had ended, but the experience would stay with both of them as a reminder of skill, patience, and control. And with that, their match came to an end.